What is going on, everyone? Astrology Rosen here, and welcome to Celestial Conversations from Chaos to Clarity. This is the weekly horoscope where I take a look at the bigger, more major transits of the week ahead and kind of just give that general horoscope for you all to take in for consideration. Now, I would say this show is not for the faint of heart. This is more for those that are more activated on their path spiritually, whether you want to call it ascending, evolution, understanding, enlightenment, but also kind of this like quantum aspect of raising your vibration to create your best stuff. If you're someone that's just looking for a lifeline during this time, and just be honest with yourself, if you're still someone that thinks that you want it to go back to like before 2020, when's it going to get back to normal, and wanting some fluff to feel better and not have to innovate or change your identity or change your life or grow spiritually, it's not the show for you. I'm just going to be really transparent on that. So I call this Celestial Conversations because we talk about the cosmos, and the subtitle is From Chaos to Clarity because there is chaos in terms of change, right? Change-making energy in the collective, but change can be a good thing. I mean, overall, I'm excited, especially as we get closer to 2027 with this astrology, even though we've got some rewinds coming later this month, Neptune going back into Pisces, and then next month Uranus going back into Taurus, which is really significant because these planets have been in those previous signs. Uranus had been in Taurus since 2018, had a little brief hiatus, came into Gemini this year for a few months, still there at the moment. And then Neptune had been in Pisces up until a few months ago, since 2011. So we're revisiting kind of like some old stories like coming up. But for now, at least, we still have this kind of grand Pumbaa opening for free speech, free thinking, a freedom of exploring our, you could say, spiritual identity with Saturn retrograde in Pisces, but Neptune, that ruler of Pisces that's at the beginning of Aries and making nice aspects of that Pluto-Uranus retrograde. Now, these planets are all retrograde, so there's kind of like an offline feeling a little bit in terms of things fully evolving forward. It's kind of more of like a replaying the tape, if you will, from a spiritual front, and so it can kind of be a little bit of a karmic playback for what we're dealing with. And I would say, especially when Neptune later this month does go back into Pisces, it can be reviewing the tape of all the Pisces things that can feel very sensitive, everything from the sensitivity of being in integrity and making decisions towards a dream that we have, that dream reality that we all want to hopefully live on an individual front, but also the sensitivities of loss, and it could be where we disconnect from our soul and we deceive ourselves, or we hide in the shadow, or secrets, lies, grief, that sort of thing. And kind of just, dealing with endings and being okay with that surrender and giving it up to the divine, giving it up to God, giving it up to Creator and Goddess, and going like, okay, like I can't change the past, but like let me learn the lessons from that. So that's really what we're stepping into. And so a lot of this week is really kind of like the preamble of like, what is it in the physical reality that we need to like make sure that we're not trying to control or hold on to and hold into our day-to-day life. The reason I mention that is because Venus is going to intersect with that South Node in Virgo. So the reason that I titled this week's video, what to manifest, what not to manifest, Venus is that planet where we set out the quality of the creations that we want in the physical. We could use that throat chakra to speak it, express it, write it, the confidence to own it, owning the value systems. But with the South Node, it's always much more about a release. So where in our day-to-day lives are we holding on to value systems that have expired, which can feel kind of weird because it could be like getting the milk from a day ago and then pulling it out and being like, this is expired already. I just got this fucking thing. But it's being okay with the release. It's not trying to hold on to things that we think that are going to freshen up our reality that are false lights. That's actually not going to make things better. That it's actually more trying to control and hold things together, especially in the physical aspect of things. This brings up money for sure, brings up relationships, brings up projects where we overthink these things overanalyze these things in Virgo, when really the looping thoughts about these things are really just coming up to say sayonara to them, to go, hey, thanks, at some point you were a part of my system, you were a part of my reality, but sayonara, don't really need it anymore. Have some gratitude, pour one out for the homies, and see what wants to come in next. So the what not to manifest part really is like the perfect project, the perfect relationship, the perfect, money situation. Like it could be like haggling over money, or maybe some like looping things and just like weird victimization in like relationships, and I'd say unconscious communication, the opposite of like conscious communication, of just like really just speaking more factually, or at least like when it's not speaking about facts, like more of the observer effect of like, this is how the reality is occurring to me. Because some of this with money, relationships, projects can be, no, this is what it is. Like this is exactly what it is. And it's like, there's some systematic error in the thinking, there's some falsity. So in a lot of ways, there's like a humbling of going, well, the best quality relationships that actually want to see us be spiritual and let go of the things that don't serve, and people that are willing to listen and space hold and not try to necessarily critique so much. Like it's like kind of like the coaching critique. Like Virgo's very like athletic, and it's like the coach that's like over complicating it, like trying to get the person to like move in a certain direction that isn't actually aligned with like where they're at, like with their cadence, like their present moment, their value systems, and really just kind of needing to take a step back and kind of go, okay, like they're working it out, they're figuring it out. And it's a lot different if it's like, hey, I intuitively felt called to connect with you and have this conversation and see where it goes. And it's kind of more getting like the resonant like feedback of a natural rhythm of the conversation. But if it's like there's like a self-seeking of like an end gaming, like I need to get something from a conversation, even just like doing an activity in life, I'm doing this thing so that I could get this exact physical South Node Venus outcome, it creates calamity, it creates stress, it creates like Smeagol and Lord of the Rings, like my precious. Like if I just like keep doing this thing and controlling and holding it together, this reality, like eventually I'll get the heirloom, I'll get the golden ticket, I'll get the thing that I'm like after. And it's like, well, that's not even the thing to like really go for. So when it comes to creation, when it comes to manifestation, when it comes to value systems, it's really not about like looking forward. It's about the releasing of what's in the way, of like what's something more in alignment that wants to come through. It is Libra season. It's all about finding the peace and the alignment of our character. And so because that Venus rules Libra with the South Node with Virgo, it's kind of like the alignment is not really going to come from the exact facts and the details of the thinking. It's going to feel a little bit more soulful. It's going to feel a little bit more observant of our reality, of like what really needs to change so that I don't like run the same day-to-day life routine cycles over and over again. And that's what's weird, is then in essence it's kind of like in that spiritual sort of alignment comes a healing of a release and not forcing, especially because Jupiter being that traditional ruler of Pisces, where the North Node's at, opposite that South Node Venus, and Jupiter being in Cancer, that just is coming off a square to that Mercury in Libra, but also is about to get squared by Chiron, retrograde in Aries. It's like there's a healing element to not forcing things to like work or go a certain way, that we have to be like the initiator. It's like we receive the manifestation and like the thing that's a little bit more, you could say, unexpected. Like it's more like the spiritual divination thing that's more connected to frequency, that's kind of like the reward of going like, see, this is what it's like when you're more not so much stuck in the human part of shit and like more in your spiritual side, but not in like a egoic identification, but more this like surrendered, like I'm vibrating at this frequency of flow and receptivity in my life that's a higher dimensional way of viewing things. And so, you know, that could be a hard sell for people because it can be wanting to overanalyze the information with that South Node Venus, especially like valuing something that's not even akin to the soul. Like it would be like people that, you know, all of a sudden want to study Three-Eye Atlas or a Charlie Kirk thing or a political thing. And it's like, when did you get on that bandwagon and try to understand this and trying to find the facts of it? You know, I don't think anybody really knows what that thing really is. It's like I just saw a thing from like Bill Nye, the science guy, that's like, oh, we need to be prepared or whatever, and like freak out. And it's like anytime I see like a celebrity science person, especially with fucking South Node Venus and Virgo, I'm just like, yeah, whatever, fear mongering, just more misinformation. And it's like, but notice it's like it's still not naming exactly what it is because it can't be. And then it's going, oh, but we need to like be afraid and be prepared. It's like, well, how do you prepare for what? You know, it's very fear-based, South Node Venus and Virgo. We have to just kind of like let it slide by, like let things land, like not control it. It reminds me just, again, because Virgo is like very athletic sign. It's like not having to juke the guy trying to tackle you playing football, and you just like sort of like stop and let him like miss. You know, it's like assessing the trajectory of like what's happening in life and going, maybe things go better and more efficient in life, that is Virgo, with money, relationships, our value systems, if we just pause for a moment and get into more of a clear headspace instead of trying to do an activity to create an outcome, and go fucking meditate or go for the walk and get more aligned at a soulful level. You know, it's also, you could say, South Node Venus, it could be releasing, of course, yeah, it's that same tired daily routine, but it also could be false relationships, although like those I think are going to more reveal themselves and sort of like self-destruct. That's kind of like, oh, you're not a part of my reality or the system anymore. It's like, not, I would caution against like being the one that says like you're not working for my life and like pushing it aside, because it can be the falsities in relationships of like who done it, you know, like who's doing what. And so it's more of like a reflection period on like a higher spiritual vibrational level of things, that when you rise to like some level, it's like no one's really needs to be like critiqued or criticized like for what's being done, especially on the human level. That's the whole understanding of Venus and Virgo, what like nitpicks things, especially in the South Node. It can get like really super critical really fast, and even about ourselves. But that North Node of Pisces, and the fact that Saturn's there, although it's not conjunct, but Neptune the ruler and its beginning of Aries, it's like turn the mirror back to the self. Turn it back and look at, what are the looping thoughts? Like, what is the same day-to-day reality that's playing out? Like, even making sure, like, paying attention to the self-sabotaging patterns, because I think it could get a little easier to a little harder to assess actually when Neptune goes back into Pisces, and not going back into like delusion, la land that a lot of the collective has been in since 2011. I'd say the South Node and Venus and Virgo also too could be releasing like what are the blocks to just like love, like in terms of like more the physical embodiment of love. Sure, it could be relationships, but it's more so like, what is the flawed systematic thinking, the looping thoughts, like being in the mind that like keeps us from being more, you could say, in the body, and like being present into the spiritual frequency and the energy of like, wait, actually, how do I feel about this value system? Like, is that a measure of love to me? And so this is about letting go of the things that we value that like don't actually give us anything back, that doesn't give love back, that's like, it's like breadcrumbs. It's like little fucking like breadcrumbs. And it's like the illusionary reality that we have to play small when actually we can go more boundless at a spiritual level. And so I think it's a good time to go into these quantum meditations and higher self aspect connections and like get reacclimated to a deeper sense of our subconscious mind and sort of this celestial reprogramming of behaviors and witnessing things instead of like trying to control everything that's happening in the present moment, especially for an outcome. You know, when it comes to, you know, my leaders out there, my entrepreneurs, my creatives, you know, you business-minded people and you mystics out there that are initiating, it's like, good luck trying to like be organized like right now when it comes to money projects, work schedules, like routines. It's a little bit more nuanced in the sense of like things obviously still have to get done. It's a reminder with the South Node that you can't just like walk away from it. It's a part of the equation, but it's just not like doubling down on it needing to all look a certain way. That there's kind of an ego death a little bit, especially when it comes to like the control aspect of like where we think that we're being stimulated or we're alive or that we're feeling adrenaline, like if we're in the mix, if we're like on the front lines, like meddling with everything going on in our lives, especially with the relationships, the money, the projects. And it's like where we forget to go, wait, like there's a divine orchestration behind things. It's North Node in Pisces and Neptune's in Aries retrograde, that ruler Pisces. And so we still have to align our free will with that. But so a lot of the alignments, I think, here in Libra season is like not meddling so much and aligning more with the free will and action of, let me take a step back and kind of like assess my life and like what am I actually like glad that's like falling away, because it's like kind of like bullshit. Like it's not, and that could be everything from the thinking for sure, but it's more about the thinking that creates kind of like the way that we forcefully construct our reality to like keep it going, because we're not sure what to do with the gaps of like when we're not identified with that thing, especially like through a value system. And so I think it's a good time to let these things go. I really do. Of course, if you do want to get an astrology reading, reach out, book that. And then I am, depending on the person, just so it's not disruptive, people can still get into the Higher Self Rising group coaching program. There's still an opportunity there. You'll just have to reach out and see what that entails. But that's where we meet weekly, every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Central Time, meet for an hour and a half. I do a celestial activation. I teach. I give a tool for central nervous system management, aka stress, especially South Node Venus Virgo. And really just like get into the embodiment practices of how to take certain things that are these spiritual tools, but actually utilize them. Because the other thing about South Node Venus is like, are we actually utilizing our abilities, our skill set, our tools? Like, are we actually weaving with them, or are there sort of like missed moments of opportunities? And so that's the South Node part where it's like, you still got to work, you still got to create and show up, but it's like creating for more of this like soulful embodied skill set place, not to get something. So, and then what else is I gonna say? If you check out my YouTube, I did put up a talk that I did at a local metaphysical event just discussing the rise of the sleeping phoenix, like how things are changing in 2027 in February, and how we're ending a 413-year cycle of the right and cross of planning, which means buckle up, buttercup. Like, this is why we do the spiritual work, and we initiate and we find out who we really are and stand up for ourselves in a soulful, authentic way, because, you know, depending on the system's not going to work, especially as we're talking here. Like, you know, going to a job right now just for money, South Node, Venus, and Virgo, like, talk about feeling strangulated at the throat chakra. You know, it's like being in the show fucking Severance and not being able to, like, speak who you are at a job, or like just like amnesia, like you don't even know who you are, like there or on the other side of, like, when you're not there at that job. And I know that might suck, because it can seem very real, like, oh, I gotta do this job for money, or I gotta do this activity, or I gotta help this person. You know, could even bring up some people pleasing aspects, you know, this astrology, just like watching out for that. Like, but it's like it may not look like people pleasing. It might just look like, oh no, I'm being a good person. I'm helping this person with, like, this, and this. And, but then it's like, well, that's fine. But, like, a lot of the astrology is like making space for, like, the awareness at a soulful level of what wants to change. And so, these are times where we're being prepared. You know, we're being prepared for certain challenges. And while I do think that 2027 is going to be really beautiful and beyond overall, and to not fearmonger, there are messes and disruptions that we have to face collectively, but especially more so in ourselves, to clean up the subconscious mess that got created by believing in a lot of the illusions that have been put out. And unfortunately, the ego will reinforce the illusion when we get too excited and, you know, are enjoying the popcorn too much watching the movie, and forget that, like, we were never meant to be on the sideline during this time. Some people, sure, maybe supporters and promoters, and not necessarily on the front lines of leadership and pioneering, but, like, activating the soul's code for, like, wait, okay, like, this is changing, this is falling apart, but, like, what now? Like, what next? And that's what we get to define. And so it's Venus, South Node, Virgo is, like, kind of like, do we want to, like, learn from history and its patterns of, you know, the lowest common denominator, or do we want to, like, play out a weird version of idiocracy where the illusion is that people are being smart and they're actually being dumb at a soul fucking level? So if you have this, you know, the Chiron square to Jupiter, you know, can bring up family situations. So, you know, so if, you know, we're getting family relationship stuff this week that comes up, and you need to just, like, honor people, like, where they're at, and not, like, be the tyrant that, you know, rocks the boat too much, especially, like, with going to battle over stuff. Like, we heal more by the self-reflection and assessing the greater capacity and range in our own personal life of how we're feeling. So I'm going to call this week, like, a very intense week for emotional activations, like seeing if we can move more so from the mental body to the emotional body, you know. And so that's the beauty of making space in the meditation, and kind of, like, you know, move back from the thoughts and to allow the emotions to flow. The default might be to want to just, again, go into an activity, exercise, like, you know, South Node, Venus, and Virgo. I'm kind of guilty of that too. It's like, but that's the problem with the South Node, you know. It's like, it's the seductive element of it, but how do we go into, like, the activities and the routines, but then go, okay, I'm feeling self-critical, or I'm critical of this person, or I went and did this activity, but I'm not making space for something that I truly value or truly want to work on. And where is that like a soul level abandonment, where it's like we think that we're putting ourselves, our values first, but we're actually putting ourselves last because we're letting the ego lead, and that can be really tough to discern. So this could be a good time too for like journaling and getting out just like all the fluff, the negativity, like the riffraff of the thinking, burning those pages. This could be good for, I'd say, restraint with conversations, because it's probably not going to be fully understood. And I don't mean like just like don't talk to people, obviously, but it's kind of like dropping in intuitively and really asking this question: does this really need to be said now? Does it need to be said in this way? Does it need to be said in this approach? Is there a better time for it? And so part of the training as we lead up to 2027 is how to act more intuitively in the moment, so that we don't need to rely on false structures, routines, rhythms, ways that we try to create, that it's coming more from a place of trying to survive, hold it together, just play out the same familiar aspects of life that have went stale. They're boring. They're boring to the soul. The soul's not feeling boundless, like it's able to create. You know, it would be like Neo and Trinity if they're just like, you know, fucking had a food baby, you know, they ate too much at a buffet and they're just like, yeah, I'm just not gonna like, you know, fly high today, or, you know, go inspire people or let people know what's really up. So I think all in all, it's like hold true to what your purest essence of your soul's values are, of what you're here to do, and come as close to that as possible. Not the best time to get overly strategic and reinvent the wheel for things of like some like brand new crazy shiny approach to things. It's modesty time. And then you know, South Node Venus and Virgo too reminds me of like the Midas touch, or like the woman, and I think it was Sleeping Beauty, that like touched the pinwheel or whatever. You know, it's like, it's very South Node Virgo, especially Venus. It's like, don't do the thing, that like one little thing that is going to be disruptive for life. And the Midas touch of like, don't chase the outcome. It's like, sure, you can get the goal, but then like, does it come with consequences? So it's paying attention to these different aspects of that. With the aspect of those nodes, it's going, well, okay, whatever, I did the thing, maybe I wasn't present, maybe I wasn't paying attention fully, but then like getting the reflection later on with the North Node in Pisces, and like going through and reflecting, especially nighttime hours or like early morning hours, like the getting up before the sun. This brings up the night sky, like soulful connection of things, to kind of like get out of that routine, because it's like the understanding, the consciousness of the sign that is Virgo. It's like where we close out the daytime hours because the sun sets in Libra. And so with the sun in Libra, it being Libra season, it's like the sun is setting on values that are not going to take us forward. They're flawed. They're miscalculations, like in our thinking minds and our ego, that, you know, aren't really making us like wealthy spiritually, emotionally, physically. So when in doubt, write it out. Do the spiritual things that you know that support your self-care, well-being process, because that Jupiter square to Chiron in Aries, it goes better like pausing to reflect personally the emotions, the self-care, than it does like force forward to try to like reinforce like a belief that we're being too like almost like emotionally sort of like fixated on, like going in that direction, that somehow, well, when I get there, when I do the thing, the action, the activity, like then I'll feel this way. So it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So this is, you know, it's like back to basics, like mindfulness 101, observing the behaviors, and then when the lightning does strike and the epiphany moments like do happen, that can happen, and it's like, oh wow, like what the fuck was I doing? And it's like waking up as a soul, like go do the thing, because that's when you know the juice is on, the frequency is on. So we don't need to over study ourselves and over contemplate things. It's more just like read the energy, like not like overly trying to read how to fix things, make things work better, make things more efficient, like get the thing. It's more so like read the energy. It's like, is it like feel a little heavy and like kind of like pulling things down, or is it like drawing things to the surface of like, oh, actually, like I don't need this. I don't need this as a part of my life. So anyways, draw a card. Reach out if you need an astrology reading or you want to get into higher self-rising. You know, on the spiritual level, there's highs, there's lows, there's beauty, there's peace. Like it is Libra season. And the nice thing is it doesn't have to be specific to it being like some thing that's happening in our lives that's like going well to find that peace and that alignment. It's more so like just being okay as a soul that feels aligned, even when it's not attached to any specific thing. So it's this very like spiritual yogi type of detachment, kind of like Buddha-like. And but all, you know, the information, the media stuff, the triggers, the problems that come up in life can pull us from that, but it's definitely not about saving it to the end, so to speak, and skipping out on the things that are the most important. It's more so just like sitting with them on an emotional, spiritual level, that it's like forging us to actually be stronger willed, stronger minded, to become more stress resilient. And so pay attention to the coping mechanisms too, of like the stress management tools that are not actually good, that are not helping. South Node, Venus and Virgo. Well, we got the Virgo card, digest. I know it's backwards, but so Virgo does rule digestion. So, but it's not just digesting food, it's also digesting information. So, you know, don't fall for the illusion on the digestion food front of like thinking some food's high quality that it's not, and tricking the self, right? Like know what's good for your system, especially frequency wise, North Node in Pisces. But also the information that's being taken in. What are the thoughts that are being taken in? That's this observer mindfulness effect, to make sure that we're not consuming poison like with our thoughts. I'm a fan, and I learned this from another astrologer, Christopher Witecki, great astrologer when it comes to numerology and the understanding of the degrees in astrology and so many other things. Just a really phenomenal human being. And he, mentioned this concept of like letting the heart sort of lead, letting love lead, with only paying attention or consuming or believing in thoughts that are actually true to the heart. And I've tested that out and it works pretty well. You know, obviously there's no perfect system right now. Like on a call the other day with a client, it was like, very Libra. They were wanting to balance out, moving away from their conditioned, repetitive thinking that's very South Node and Venus, to like embodying more of their human design and that more intuitive led side, that North Node and Venus. But it is South Node and Venus and Virgo. There's no perfect value to extrapolate from a system where it's just like you put it in the routine and then it's like satisfying the soul the next day. It's a process, it's a release. It's a gentleness. So maybe some of us, like with that Virgo digest card, like actually need like a spiritual laxative a little bit, the compassion, the forgiveness, the release, the surrender, to actually like go into these spaces where we give ourselves reprise, like from our day-to-day grind and the thinking and the activities to get clear on things. But ironically enough, the sign that rules Pisces, the opposite of Virgo, next card is the Neptune card, the vision card. So this was reversed though. So I don't think that we're subconsciously probably seeing things like very clear. I think that the mind is like kind of playing tricks on us. I think this is collectively when you look out into information in the world. And I don't think that our eyes and our thoughts are telling us the full truth of like the vision right now. And so it's a very patient process to sort of just like let go, you know. And it's weird because the identity shifts and the true spiritual awareness of the vibration of what the energy is like speaking to actually comes from this very beautiful, gentle surrender when we see ourselves like playing out the ego thoughts and we don't try to change them, force them away, you know, NLP ourselves or clear ourselves or, you know, overly try to align. And it's actually just kind of like, yeah, no, like I'm just a gentle like no to that. It's just this very gentle release, and it's like then the energy comes through, and it's like whatever it is that we've been like compartmentalizing with that South Node Venus and Virgo, that's actually more beautiful, that actually is more loving. Like the soul comes out, the more soulful aspect in the feeling of things, and it's not about like a needing to be witnessed in it or felt in it. It's really about how we're feeling more on an individual level and how we can see that as the world is changing, but like we're updating the software of our subconscious mind and how we're changing. And then it just kind of creates an excitement and an eternal patience for going, yeah, no, things are going to go good. It's just that we can't force it to make it work right now, because if we were doing that, we're trying to force an old reality to work that we got duped into believing in, that was what we valued, and it doesn't work, and it's never really did. But, you know, that's how we got by. So, appreciate you all. See you next time.